Zim. Zim. Unakakat. Onikanara. Zim. Taba. Brakamat. Zim.
The houze Prairie of central Nikar is home to a great diversity of formidable creatures. Some, like hyenas and leopards, are either the same species we have here on Earth, or quite similar to animals we regularly encounter. Others are quite strange, like herds of elephant-sized ornithopod dinosaurs, quill-backed ceratopsians, and enormous long-necked chalicotheres. In addition to these animals, there are numerous demons and other supernatural threats. The Shu, native peoples of this region, have long spoken with particular fear of the Nahashett, which they consider one of the most lethal of demons. The warped child of a prairie ass and a hyena. Members of the Assembly early on noted its similarities to the Leucrotta spoken of by Pliny the Elder, to the point that it has been suggested stories of this demon may well have been relayed to this Roman historian. Indeed, many in the Assembly use some variation of Leucrotta, often shortened to Leucrotta as a common name for the Nahashett, because of its many similarities. In his description of this animal, Pliny is translated as saying, "The swiftest of all beasts, around the size of an ass, with a stag's haunches, a lion's neck, tail and breast, badger's head, cloven hoof, mouth opening right back to the ears, and ridges of bone in place of rows of teeth. This animal is reported to imitate the voices of human beings. Save the bone teeth and size, this description is a dead ringer for the demon Nahashett. It is not only fast, but possesses great endurance, having massive and powerful jaws, a mane, cloven hooves, and a formidable grin. Most striking, of course, is its ability to mimic a wide range of noises. However, perhaps its strangest feature is that this is no demon at all. Fossil discoveries on Earth and Kaimere, coupled with findings of tremendous diversity of related animals on the eastern continent, some of which have this sophisticated vocal mimicry as well, have proven this to be an entirely natural species. The Nahashett, along with its cousins in Hyrule, are entelodonts, a clade of even-toed hoofed mammals that were once quite successful on Earth. As we will learn in far greater detail in our next episode, which covers the entelodonts of Hyrule, it is not a particularly unique member of its clade. Indeed, once we learn of its domesticated kin on the eastern continent, it might seem downright mundane. However, the Nahashett was not only the first entelodont properly studied by the Assembly, and much of what is known about the entelodonts as a whole is because of this animal. Despite its domesticated cousins, this animal generally doesn't thrive in captivity, which has drawn comparisons between them and their cousins to horses and zebras, although a few individuals have taken well to life in the Rooster Crest Zoo, and a lot of what has been learned about them is a consequence of these individuals. The Nahashett belongs to the Cursusidae, or running pig entelodonts. Within this group, they are part of a highly derived clade, Syncaninae, so named for their married or fused canins, or metacarpals and metatarsals. They also walk entirely on their hooves. In most entelodonts of Kairul, the foot anatomy is much less derived, instead more resembling the loose spread of camelid feet, with some having foot pads and unfused canins like pigs. In most Sin canines, these canins are varying degrees of fused, and the Nahashett and its fellow members of the Leucrotta genus are far more derived in the level of fusion. This contributes to them being highly cursorial animals. They are well adapted to run fast and with great endurance, reaching 45 miles per hour in a brief sprint and maintaining a jog of 15 miles per hour for stretches of 10 to 15 miles at a time. They are also astonishing leapers, able to clear fences and walls up to 3 meters high. Another trait of cursussids and their related Carnopachydermidae is high intelligence. This is in striking contrast to their ancestors, which have comparatively tiny brains when brought to Kaimere. This increased cranium size came at the cost of jaw muscle anchor points, though they still have a fairly powerful bite, as the anchor points and jaws widened in response. The Nahashett in the Roostercrest Zoo all show signs of high intelligence, with a female named Victoria proving quite adept as an escape artist, using her tongue and lips, sometimes combined with sticks, to pluck at a gate latch on numerous occasions. This, combined with shockingly high capacity for jumping and only short-running starts, makes them extremely difficult to contain, despite seeming to do relatively well in captivity compared to many of their cousins. They are not especially social animals, though sows will live in small groups of related animals. They only have 1 or perhaps 2 young at a time, and these juveniles will live with their mother for 2 years until she drives them off after the birth of her next young. By 2 years old, they are still immature, though they are near adult size and can fend for themselves. Maturity arrives at 4 years for females and 6 to 7 for males, though it's usually not until they're 10 years old that they slow their growth and their jugal and lower jaw ossicones reach full size. Younger males in these interim years will often live in small bachelor herds. Bachelors regularly practice fighting with each other. Ritualized face biting is how they assert dominance and impress mates, and the faces of boars are often fully covered in scars by the time they are large and experienced enough to attract mates. Fully grown boars are solitary with regards to their own kind, though they have on numerous occasions been seen living with hyenas. Nahashett tend to live around 30 years in the wild, though Victoria and several other captive Nahashett lived into their 40s. A U-shaped larynx with highly complex muscular shape control, combined with a pair of small laryngeal sacs, are how this animal can produce such a wide range of vocalizations. No doubt, also driven by their intelligence, they readily mimic any sound they hear when passive and bored. Young are especially prone to this, flexing their muscles as they grow. Often while actively hunting they remain silent, though they will mimic the sounds of prey to put them at ease. This trait also comes in handy for the boars who live with a cohort of hyenas, as they can match the vocalizations of their companions. Of course, the most frightening manifestation of this ability is that they can not only mimic human speech, they can execute very close impressions of a specific voice. Most often this happens as they mimic the person they're killing. Though this can seem a cruel torment, and according to some Shu it is in an effort to console their prey, it is probably more that they just mimic sounds when the immediate pressure to be silent during the hunt has passed. It may just be to calm themselves. Cruelty cannot be ruled out, of course. Intelligence often comes with some malice. They will occasionally harass an injured prey animal and mimic whenever it cries, though this again is sometimes perceived to be an act of boredom instead of sadism. When hungry, or if they sense other predators nearby, they immediately make a swift and silent kill. They don't seem capable of independently forming their own speech, just mimicking what they have heard, but the fidelity of their echoes can be quite chilling.
Hungry, Victoria? Dinner. Hungry, Victoria?
Perhaps the most insidious use of this ability is by experienced man-eaters mimicking the babbles and cries of human infants to lure people from the safety of their village. Sometimes even the specific cries of an infant or child they hear in the huts within the village walls. Not all Nahashett are man-eaters. Indeed, a vast majority avoid human settlements altogether, but a few boars in particular get very experienced and talented at luring humans from safety to a horrific death. Despite this, entelodonts are, as a whole, omnivorous, and the Nahashett is no exception. Like many animals on the prairie, their diet shifts with the seasons. In the wet season, they favor vegetation, almost to exclusion of meat, and females will congregate in herds of 30 or more, with bachelor herds often grouping up as well. This is when mating and birthing occurs. When the dry season arrives, these herds disperse into solitary or much smaller units. They also become more predatory at this time, favoring antelope, camels, and elasmarians half their size or smaller. They are capable of taking down larger prey, but their preference is something small they can quickly portion out and swallow in several chunks. Captive Nahashett will cache a surplus of their food, though this behavior has not been observed in wild animals, perhaps because competition pressures them to eat fast, though it may be that naturalists just haven't found caches in the wild. Though Nahashett are quite capable killers, they aren't as fast in processing of a carcass as more dedicated predators like hyenas and cockatrices against whom they compete. Unlike some other entelodonts, they have a weaker bite force and don't crush as much bone. This means their teeth don't get as blunted, so are still efficient killing implements, but their incisors, being more adapted to crop plants than strip bone, and they are sometimes driven from their kills before they have a chance at properly eating. A disadvantage to be sure, but in the harsh and competitive prairie, being second best at almost anything means these entelodonts are always able to make ends meet. Cheers to Thomas for sponsoring this episode. While he had originally wanted to hear more about the domesticated entelodonts of Kairul, as some of them belong to the same genus, I figured it would make more sense to cover them with the other entelodonts of the eastern continent, so you'll see his name in next episode as well. The Nahashett, originally included in this project as the Leucrotta, traces its origins to old Dungeons & Dragons games I ran in middle school. I led an encounter with some friends featuring this badger-headed stag that could mimic human voices, and I was immediately hooked. I don't remember exactly when I added the Leucrotta to Kaimere, but it was quite early on. It wasn't long after that I rendered it as an entelodont, and it was among the first creatures I drew and posted on my socials 6 or 7 years ago. It was great to finally give this staple of the project its own episode, and I'm super excited to explore entelodonts in greater detail in our next episode. Until then, thank you all for watching, cheers to my Patreon patrons, and of course to Thomas for sponsoring this episode. Stay fantastic, everyone. Cheers, folks!